This podcast is for anyone who has ever felt stuck, whether it's a major life transition, a dark night of the soul, or just staying small out of fear. If you've ever struggled to move forward, if you're repeating unhealthy patterns in relationships, or you have a black belt in beating yourself up, you were meant for more, and this podcast is for you. We'll get real, we'll get vulnerable, we'll probably cuss a little bit, and we'll get to the root of it all, your self-worth. With every step, you'll find the courage to rise. All right, party people, are we ready for this episode? On this episode, we are going to talk about this idea that sometimes we keep in the secret recesses of our mind, that somehow there is something wrong with us. Have you ever, be honest, have you ever had that thought or that feeling or that sense that something is wrong with you, that you feel broken? It's an extension of that feeling of not enoughness, but it can be even more insidious because we can go through life feeling like there's something wrong with us. And it's a quiet, niggling thought that can come in. That may be the reason we, fill in the blank, don't have the relationship we want, the partner we want, the reason that we have anxiety or depression, or that we struggle with something, or that we have not yet been able to create something in our life, that maybe the reason is that there's something wrong with you. Or if it's taking longer for you to achieve something, or for you to evolve through something or heal through something, that somehow maybe there's something wrong with you. And I think this is one of those things that so many people think, but maybe you've admitted it to yourself, maybe you've shared it with someone that you trust, but it is one of those quiet, insidious thoughts that can sneak in. And it's very detrimental, because here is something you can take to the bank. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you except for the fact that you think there is something wrong with you. I spent a lot of my life thinking maybe there was something wrong with me and that everyone else had everything figured out, and I was just the only one who, I had some kind of secret diagnosis that nobody had told me about as to why I was different, or my brain worked differently, or whatever else. But really, truly, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you except for the fact that you think there's something wrong with you. And that doesn't matter where you are or what it is you're dealing with. If you're working with depression or anxiety, or you are beginning to understand that your brain is neurodivergent. What the fuck is normal anyway? Normal is not a thing. We have 8 billion people on the planet, and every single one of those 8 billion people is a unique energy, is a unique soul, is a unique being, a unique biology. So what the fuck is normal anyway? And so the only reason that you think there's something wrong with you is because we've grown up in this environment that somehow reflects back to us that there's something else that we're meant to be except for exactly who we are. And then what happens, and this is one of those things that can be a positive concept to help us understand something, but then it slides into unhelpful territory. And that is this concept of labels. And you can also use diagnosis in place of labels. But there, like I said, it's a double-sided coin, and this is tricky. And I'm going to tell you why it's tricky. Because when you have been experiencing something in your life that you haven't been able to put words to, and then maybe you read something in a book or an article, or a trusted, psychologist, therapist, mentor, coach illustrates something for you and allows you to, all of a sudden the lights go on and you go, oh my gosh, that's what I experience. And then there's a label for it, because in our culture and our language, of course, as humans, we want to put a label on something so that we can identify it. But then the problem comes in that we become overly identified with the label, and the label then becomes a limitation. And so it's helpful for us to understand and to define some things that you're personally experiencing. But remember that that label is not meant to become your identity. If you want it to become your identity, then fine, but do it consciously and don't give your personal power away to a label. This happens all the time. And it happens in every area. In one place, and I think I've talked about this before, is when attachment theory became popular. And all of a sudden in the dating world, you go on a date and say, well, I'm anxious. I have anxious attachment. I'm an avoidant attachment. And okay, what are you going to do about it? This is not meant to be an excuse for a bad behavior, right? You can identify as avoidant attachment, and that's great. But how about you go work on your shit? And if you're anxiously attached, equally go work on your shit, right? With so much love. But again, it can be helpful to identify where you are in a certain process, right? Because it gives you understanding of, oh, this is where I am, right? It's as if you're walking through the dark on your journey and you're experiencing something, and then all of a sudden you reach this like wide spot in the road, and there's like a waypoint or a marker that says you are here and defines what you're seeing and experiencing. But it's never meant to be someplace where you just set up camp and live forever. Again, you're welcome to, that's free will. But if you have, and again, going with this example just because it's a good example, this applies to a lot of different things. It's to help you understand more about what you're experiencing so then you can understand what to do next. So with the example of attachment theory, if you have come to realize that you have an anxious attachment, then my next question for you is, that's wonderful. How are you going to love your way through that to become secure, right? Because understanding that you have anxious attachment is not to put a label on you and put you in a little box and this is what you're going to live and experience for the rest of your life. That is 100% giving your power away to something else. And the same thing with something like avoidant attachment. If you're avoidant, fine, take ownership of it and work through it if you want. And if you don't want, that's fine. But it's meant to help you understand where you are. It's not to be an indictment of you or to say there is something wrong with you or something bad about you. It's language and a label to help you understand where you currently are on your journey. So then now you know where to go next, right? So now you know, ooh, here's a pattern that I repeat. And to see it without shame or judgment or guilt, because what you're doing is you're loving yourself through your own journey of evolution. You are loving yourself through your own healing and evolution to say, hey, look, here's a word and a label for what I'm experiencing right now. Is this a way that I want to continue to feel in my life? And if I don't, then I will start on the journey of unraveling why this is present. And this, I think, is one of those very important, like I said, it's double-sided because it's very good and it's very comforting to read something that puts into words something you've been experiencing of, oh my gosh, this is somebody else experiences this, so much so that there's this body of work about it. And that's wonderful because we all want to feel seen and understood. And so it's wonderful to see those things, but then the next step is not to give your power away to it. It's for you to continue to maintain your power and go, ooh, it's so wonderful that I found this. I've read this. I understand where I am on my journey so much better now. And now I am armed with information about what to do with this next. And this is true for anything. It's just to be mindful that if there is some kind of label that you've found for something that you're experiencing, allow it to inform your journey, but not to be something that you give your power away to, right? And it's not meant to be a life sentence. And I think that we're in this problem-focused society, and this problem-focused culture where we always think that there's a problem with us that we're trying to fix. And this can equally be a very slippery slope in the personal development industry because there's a difference between feeling like you constantly have to quote unquote work on yourself because you have to quote unquote fix yourself as though you are broken. You are not a fucking toaster. You are not something that requires repair. You are a human being. You are a soul in a human body having a human experience, and this human experience has a lot of bumps on the road. Okay? And so there is nothing wrong with you. You are perfect exactly as you are. And so in this personal development, it can be a slippery slope because we can fall into feeling like we're constantly working on ourselves as though we're a fucking house we're rebuilding, right? Or a renovation project. And sure, we can joke about it, and sometimes it may feel that way, but watch that it doesn't become something that you internalize as if somehow you are irrevocably broken and you have to continue, you're just one book away or one course away or one coach away from all of a sudden being fixed. And you're going, Jen, aren't you a coach? Yes, I'm a coach. And my purpose as a coach is to help empower my clients to step into the sovereign beings that they already are, right? My role as a coach is exactly that, is to help remind you of who the fuck you are so that you can unapologetically own that and live as that. And I tell all my clients, my goal is always to work myself out of a job because my goal is to arm you and to help you and to guide you to the point where you literally don't need me anymore. Because then if you needed me forever, well, that's codependence. And then I joke with them about the fact that I become insanely attached to my clients. And so I always want to know how you're doing. But that's a whole other conversation. My point is, there's a difference between feeling like you are constantly working on yourself and the ongoing positive, productive evolution of our consciousness, right? These are two very different things because evolution of any human being is an upward spiral. And spiral means sometimes we circle back over things. We circle back on top of things. And so it can feel like sometimes we're not moving, but we are. It's just we come back over the top of things and we see them in a new way. But then the other side of that, when we feel like we're constantly working on ourselves as though something is wrong with us or that somehow we're broken or that we need to be fixed, the human evolution process is a never-ending journey. We're always going to be growing and evolving. If we're not growing, we're dying. If you're not growing, then why are you here, right? And so it's understanding that wherever you are, and listen, you guys who have been with me for a while, you know I went through some shit in my life. And there are times that can be very dark, and there are times that you can feel very lost and alone, and you go through that dark night of the soul. And at the end of the day, no matter how dark it feels, wherever you are in your journey, just know that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you. You are having a human experience. And listen, whatever your personal belief system is, when we come into this human body and we begin to grow and evolve, things imprint on us. Up until the time you're about 7 or 8 years old, your brains are our brains, my brain too. Our brains are incredibly permeable, and we will take in things around us, and we take it all in through the lens of survival, and our brains are wiring to protect us. And so sometimes it doesn't have to be a big T trauma. It can be something that on the surface you might say, well, that was we use judgmental language. I go, well, that was just a silly little thing that happened. I don't understand how that could, create a belief system in me. Well, guess what? You don't get to decide those things. Your permeable subconscious mind is taking in everything as a child, and you're making unconscious key decisions about your life. And the good news is that you really do not have to go back to the origin point and figure it out in order to experience relief in your life. But that's another podcast. My point in saying that about how we pick these things up as kids is so that you understand that there is truly nothing wrong with you. Whatever you're experiencing right now today that you don't enjoy in your daily life, whether it's, anxiety or depression or challenges in any area of your life, somewhere that pattern was actually trying to protect you from something. It's just gotten way out of balance, and you no longer need it to protect you in that way. But because of how our brains and bodies are, we will literally become wired toward a certain pattern. But here's the good news. Your brain and your body can be reprogrammed. There is sometimes this all came from years ago when they said we don't grow new neurons, which is complete crap. But this whole thing of people don't change, that to me is the most maddening statement ever, because it's complete and utter bullshit, because quite literally anyone can change, but they have to want to change, and they have to be willing to walk the fire of the process of change. It doesn't have to be this long, grueling, exhausting thing, but it's also good to understand that it's not a light switch, right? Our bodies have become conditioned to a certain process, and so left unchecked, it's going to continue to do that. And so just and I use physical fitness analogies all the time only because it's something that we can see with our eyes, and sometimes that's easier for us to draw analogies with than something that's a little more esoteric. But it's exactly like if you start a new workout program, you're going to have to stick with it consistently for weeks on end in order to see a change in your body, but then you will see that change, right? And so it's the same kind of thing of you have to do it consistently to rewire that pattern. But when we have this belief that there's something wrong with us, then that's the lens through which we see ourselves, and then we're just going to feel shitty about ourselves. And that's really not helping anything at all, because that's the last thing we need. And so my point in this podcast is to really illuminate for you this. If you have caught yourself or found yourself with any variation of the belief that something's wrong with you, or that you felt something's wrong with you, or someone around you has said things that allow you to believe there's something wrong with you, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. The only thing that you're experiencing, and when I say only, I'm not diminishing your experience, because your experience is very real, but the only thing is that you think there's something wrong with you, and there's not. We've just become completely disconnected from our natural state. We have become completely disconnected from our hearts, from our intuition, from our own internal guidance system. We've become disconnected from nature. We have evolved in this culture that just progressively activates our internal survival mechanisms. And you might say, well, I don't have any survival mechanisms activated. I have a 9-to-5 job. I go to work. I'm safe, all these things. Well, I'm going to lovingly challenge that and say that the reaction you had earlier today to your coworker, where your entire body went into an adrenaline response, is in fact a survival instinct. But again, for another podcast. But that we have become so disconnected from our natural states, and we have just been running in this machine that our culture has continued to perpetuate for us, that then all of a sudden your body is no longer able to relax, repair. Your system is no longer able to connect to your heart, to your intuition, to what your actual truth is. And then we go looking for answers outside of ourselves. And while it is a wonderful thing to seek to understand, and again, that's what I said, there is no good or bad. It's just watching when something gets out of balance and when you begin to give your power away to something outside of you, right? Because all of this, everything that I do and all of this experience, in my opinion, this human experience is all about us remembering our internal sovereign power, remembering how truly powerful we are, and clearing the mud away from anything that has disconnected us from that, and understanding who we are in the world and loving who we are for our own unique essence. I didn't hear the term neurodivergence until I don't know, it just came into my awareness several years ago. And I was like, shit, I'm 100% neurodivergent. Like, this explains a lot of my life. And it's allowing things to inform you and allowing it to just be another way of seeing your own unique magic. Because as I said earlier, we live in this society that feels like, oh, there's a problem. I got to fix the problem. What if we don't look at everything as though it's a problem? What if it's a gift? Because there is a gift in every part of who we are, right? There's a gift in it. And so if you switch your lens from the secret belief that there's something wrong with you to instead the understanding that there is nothing wrong with you, you've just been born into a society that largely lives out of alignment with connecting to our true nature and our true essence, and fosters environments where we're always rushing, where we're always living by survival instinct, where we're putting in inputs from the media and from the news that does nothing except to heighten negative emotional responses, right? There's nothing wrong with you. Your system has been doing what it's designed to do. It just got out of balance because it was allowed to run unchecked and do all these things in this world. And so if you find yourself at a point where you've I think I shouldn't say everybody, but most people hit a point where they go, hold on, I don't think I can keep living this way. And if you found me, you're probably at that point, because that's usually when people find me, because that's what my gift is, right? Is to guide you from that point to the other side where you have embraced your power, where you understand all these things, and where you truly are on the path to learning to love who you are and where you are no matter what, and have the tools to deal with anything that comes your way. But when we live in that space of being disconnected from ourselves, constantly looking for answers outside of us and giving all of our power away to that, or to a label, or to this idea that we're just one pill or one book or one course away from being fixed, then that leaves us in this place of constantly feeling broken. And I just want you to know that no matter where you are, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are perfect just as you are, and choose the path of your own conscious evolution in the human experience, because you love yourself enough that that's what you want for yourself, as opposed to feeling like there's something perpetually wrong with you. I talked not too long ago about this idea of comparison as well, but I just want you to remember that your journey is not anyone else's journey. You have your own unique, I'm going to say this till y'all are sick of me saying it, but you have your own unique essence. You have your own unique energy. You have your own memories, your own wiring, your own gifts, your own skills, your own talents, your own unique heart, your own unique soul. And so you are unique, and your journey is not going to look like anybody else's. You can take inspiration from where they are. You can take knowledge from where they are, but your journey is your journey. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with you, except for the pervasive belief that there is something wrong with you. And I speak from experience, because I went through that too. I spent so much of my life thinking there's something secretly wrong with me, or maybe the reason why I wasn't perceiving I was having the same results as other people is because I was just irreparably broken and nobody had bothered to tell me, right? And it's not true. It's not true. And I know it can feel true, but it's not true. And so my message for you today is that if that's something you've ever experienced, I want to lovingly invite you into the idea that maybe, just maybe, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. And that maybe, just maybe, it's just information about where you are on your journey right now. And that just maybe you are truly a unique soul, 1 in 8 billion on this planet, that has merely woken up and said, I don't think I want to keep doing things the way I've been doing them because I really don't enjoy how life is for me right now. Internally or externally, it doesn't matter, because sometimes things can look great on the outside, but inside it feels very different. And so all that's happening is that you've woken up and decided, I don't think I want to do things like this anymore. And so that's a wonderful place, because now you've started on the journey home to yourself. And you go, I thought I was home to myself. But you've started on the journey home to yourself to unbecome the things that you became because someone else told you it was who you were supposed to be, or you felt it was who you should be, or there was something unconsciously within you that created that as a way of protecting you. And now you're just on the journey back to figuring out what's really true for you. And what you carry with you on that journey is the knowing that there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Your entire system is infinitely intelligent, and it's been trying to protect you, and you might not need it to protect you in the same way. And so if you want to look for labels that help you understand where you are and identify your starting point, and you look for guidance and you look for input and insight, and you learn knowledge about yourself and your path and healing and evolution, all of those things are wonderful. And I have done those things and I continue to do those things. But as you do all of those things, be mindful of where you are giving your power away. And giving our power away can look like many different things. And if I go into all of them, we will be on this podcast until next Christmas or longer. And giving your power away is consistently being in that feeling of being helpless. And now hear me clearly. I'm not saying there aren't times when you feel beaten down. I'm not saying there aren't times when you feel tired or when you need a hand and you need that support. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when we give our power away to something and go, well, this is just how I am, I guess I just have to live with it. That is giving your power away, because that is fundamentally saying something outside of me gets to decide who I am. And that is the power that you have within yourself that no one can take away, that only you can give away. And it's fine if you've given your power away. We do it all the time. I do it all the time. You do it all the time. It's not a problem of giving it away. It's the problem of, are you taking it back? Because it can happen in a fraction of a second and you go, whoops, I was starting to give my power away. I forgot that I am actually the creator of my own reality. Let me remind myself of that. Let me remind myself that ultimately I'm the one that gets to decide what meaning I place on something. I am ultimately the one that gets to decide within my own world what I believe to be true. And I am going to pause on that. Otherwise, that will be a whole other podcast. But we'll talk about that another time, of this idea of our beliefs and how those beliefs can actually be changed, and that you ultimately are the one that gets to decide what that belief is. But this is about you understanding that wherever you are on your journey, you were just at the beginning of your journey and you're realizing there's some shit with mom, there's some shit with dad, there's some relationship shit, money shit, career shit, internal shit, whatever it is, it's all okay. Because what matters is that you've seen some things in your life that you want to shift, because you've realized that these things are not actually the way that you want to continue to live. And that awareness right there is a profound act of self-love, because ultimately what you're saying is, I loved myself too much to continue on with these unconscious patterns. And they're unconscious for a reason. What does unconscious mean? It means you're not aware of it. So now what you're doing is you're bringing them into awareness. And so if you find yourself of that feeling of despair, or if somehow there's something wrong with me, just remind yourself, and even if right now you don't quite believe it yet, just remind yourself there's absolutely nothing wrong with you except for the fact that you think there's something wrong with you. You are a soul having a human experience, and this human experience is designed for you to learn a lot of lessons and to grow. And growth, it can feel painful sometimes, but it can also be beautiful. And so just know that wherever you are on your journey, you are perfect exactly as you are, and you're just in that process of evolving your consciousness and working through some of those things. You are perfect as you are loved exactly as you are, and there is nothing fucking wrong with you. Sparkle on, my loves. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Courage to Rise podcast. Visit my website, couragetorise.com, for more information on one-on-one coaching, group coaching programs, and other upcoming events. Remember, life's too short not to sparkle. Sparkle on.